On the 26th of April 1986, it was decided at Chernobyl to take advantage of reactor number 4's downtime by carrying out a safety test on an emergency core cooling feature. At 1:24 in the morning, an engineer recorded in his diary that the protective system wasn't working. At the same moment, a huge and catastrophic surge in power caused 2 explosions. As fires raged, the core of reactor number 4 was destroyed. A huge cloud rose into the sky, spreading large amounts of radioactive fuel and materials into the atmosphere.
It led to a chain reaction of explosions powerful enough to blow off the steel and concrete lid. Official reports claimed that 2 plant workers died in the initial explosion, but some estimates put the number closer to 50. Dozens of firefighters called in to extinguish the flames were also hospitalized with radiation sickness.
48,000 people living in Pripyat were also victims of the ineptitude and secrecy of the authorities. The town was only 3 kilometers away from Chernobyl.
More than 30 years on from the disaster that made its name infamous, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant still holds an uneasy fascination for many.
What does Fukushima, Japan and Chernobyl, Ukraine have in common? Well, if you know your history, you probably know that both of those places have been affected by nuclear disasters, with the Fukushima disaster of 2011 being one of the worst catastrophes in recent years. But what is a nuclear disaster and what makes it so devastating? Don't worry, because PAWER is here to answer those questions. In this video, we will be talking about key information about nuclear energy and nuclear disasters, as well as what to do in case you find yourself in the middle of a nuclear disaster. Hopefully, you guys could learn a thing or two.
Let's first get familiar with nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is a type of energy which produces 0 emissions, and it comes from splitting atoms in a reactor to heat water into steam, which then generates electricity. This type of power is considered to be a cleaner and more efficient form of energy, as it does not produce any greenhouse gases and can even help in mitigating climate change. Now, the common question is, after all the disasters nuclear energy has caused, is it really safe? I know that a lot of you relate nuclear energy as very dangerous due to what the media usually tells us. But you'd be surprised to know that it is actually one of the safest forms of energy that exists today. Nuclear plants all over the world have high standards regarding the safety of their workers and the planet. Other than that, this type of energy itself is an advantage to many areas, such as cost of operation, base load, and reducing pollution. Well, if it's that safe, then why do disasters happen? The chances of a nuclear disaster happening is rare. However, one should still be aware of the possible risks and hazards that it may bring. Prevention is always better than the cure. A nuclear meltdown occurs when a fuel element in a reactor exceeds the standard heat degree that cannot be controlled by the cooling systems anymore. It could result in fires and radioactive releases, which could dangerously affect one's health. I know what you're thinking. Radioactive releases? That sounds dangerous. But in reality, we are constantly being exposed to radioactive waste, though only in small amounts. And if exposed to high amounts, our cells could get killed, and there's a chance that our DNA could mutate. If not treated properly and immediately, it could turn cancerous. The key thing here is that we should be wary of the environment that we are in and make sure that it is safe in order to avoid negative repercussions.
Did you know
know that the Philippines only has one nuclear power plant which remains unoperational? That means we're probably not going to be experiencing a nuclear disaster anytime soon. But it's still best to stay informed and prepared. And now that we have identified the possible risk of a nuclear energy disaster, it's time to know the things that you must do before, during, and after a nuclear disaster. While we wish for our safety, preparation is always the key. It is always best to prepare an emergency supply kit which includes but is not limited to plastic sheeting, duct tape, and scissors for the people and families living near nuclear power plants. Next is to create an emergency plan and make sure to keep it up to date and study it regularly. Lastly, do not be afraid to ask for information materials from the power plants as they are required to provide this information to nearby residents. It is also important that you are aware of the warning signals used in your area. In the case of a nuclear energy disaster, local government units will activate warning signals. So here's where your awareness comes in handy. During the course of time, remember to stay calm and keep your televisions, radios, or other devices available in your home on, which you can use to stay informed. Increase your distance from the radiation source by evacuating or staying indoors. If you were advised to evacuate, secure your car windows and vents and use recirculating air. If advised to stay indoors, turn off air conditioning units or any other appliance or vents which intake air from outside of your home. If accessible and available, go to the basement or anywhere that is underground. Make sure to stay away from the radiation source at all times. After a nuclear energy disaster, stay tuned to the news for real-time updates. Exposed individuals should immediately follow the contamination guidelines. Seek immediate medical aid if you or anyone that you know have started exhibiting unusual symptoms like nausea. Offer aid to children, elderly, or anyone who requires special assistance. Only return home when authorities have declared the area safe, and store food in covered containers and in the refrigerator. Immediate action when exposed to radioactive material or hazards is key to reduce the risk of harm. Now, the question is, how do you decontaminate? Tap water during a nuclear disaster may be contaminated by radioactive particles, so it is advised to avoid drinking or ingesting water from your faucet. First things first, remove all outer layers of your clothing, but be careful so that you don't shake loose any radioactive dust. Secure these clothing items in a resealable plastic bag and keep it out of reach for people. Next thing to do is rinse yourself with soap and warm water, and avoid scratching your skin or using conditioner, as these will cause radioactive particles to stick to your body. Make sure to cover your wounds and abrasions to keep them from entering through open wounds. Finally, put on a fresh set of clean and uncontaminated clothes which is safe to wear.
Nuclear disasters could occur because of different factors. Although all nuclear energy power plants are highly maintained, kept safe, and the occurrences of nuclear disasters are quite rare, it is still better to be informed of its adverse effects, how it could leave towns abandoned, at least 100,000 people affected, and most importantly, how it could result to the deaths of innocent lives. We must know what to do before, during, and after a nuclear disaster. It may all sound scary and dangerous, but with preparedness as our shields, we can keep ourselves and our families safe. Learning all of this may sound unnecessary to some, but again, it is still better to be 10 steps ahead than to potentially risk your life. In case of emergency, you can contact the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute of the Department of Science and Technology through their number on your screens. And for more information, you can visit their website, link below. That is it from us about nuclear energy and nuclear disaster. We hope you're now equipped with vital information because, as they say, knowledge is power.